Welcome back. If you've watched my last puzzle solving video, that was a little embarrassing, especially the part where for 2.5 minutes I thought the knight moved the wrong way. And I think in that same puzzle, a little bit later, it took me 30 seconds or more to realize I could just take that rook. So that was a little embarrassing. Any sane or reasonable person would probably tell me to, take a break. But nothing about this. These words imply sane or reasonable, so I'm going to keep going. But what you're looking at right here is my rapid rating on chess.com over the last 120 days. There were some ups and downs, but mostly ups. As you see, it continues to rise through the 1100s until about a week ago, a little less than a week ago, I made it to 1192. And I thought, I'm so close. I just got to win a couple more games. The problem was, at that point, I had won 5 of my last 6 games to get to 1192. That's what that little slope is right there. And chances were I was not going to win the next couple of games to break 1200. And I didn't. I actually lost the next 2 games and dropped down to what you see here, which is 1175. That's where I am right now. I'm going to go over those last 2 games that I lost, and hopefully we'll learn something from them. And I'll try to keep it quick. In the first of those 2 games, when I had a rating of 1192, we reached this position after 8 moves. This is the semi-Slav defense. Just the Slav defense, according to the book here. My opponent had a very slight advantage if they made the best move, and they did. Now here, I completely misunderstood what I should do in this position, at least according to the engine. I actually did consider this move, which it's saying right now is the best move. But this move I didn't understand at all, because I thought this is my good bishop. I have lots of pawns on dark squares, and but it wants me to put this bishop here, and I didn't want to trade off this bishop. But it turns out that it says, as you can see, if I do put it there, the bishop to d3 line, it says black won't trade off the bishop. They'll just leave their bishop there, and they'll do something like castle. But so I misunderstood that, but yeah, basically it's saying one of these bishop moves is the best move for me. But yeah, I misunderstood that, and I put my knight in the middle. I think I don't know. It turns out to not be horrible. It wasn't counted as a mistake or anything, but as you can see, the rating incrementally drops. And after my opponent castles, you can again see that one of my top 3 moves, sometimes rated as the best move, is to put this light squared bishop right here. And again, it says black's not going to trade. But the reason I was hesitant to get this bishop out for 2 reasons. One was the fact that I didn't want to trade off my light squared bishop, even if, coming back this way to recapture. But I was afraid that if I moved my bishop out, that this pawn's not guarded. But in evaluation, the computer says basically that's fine. Let him take the pawn. Just put your rook over. And then they have to put the bishop back. And now you can take it, and it's fine. You take it, and they'll take back. And you've got a rook pointed directly at their queen. And you can just go ahead at their king. And just go ahead and put your queen here. And now black just has to worry about defense this whole time. And so I could have done that, but I didn't. I thought, if that's the reason I'm not moving my bishop out, maybe I should protect that some other way, and then I can get my bishop out. And so I moved my rook here. That was a mistake, as you can see. And I really don't know why. Why is it a big deal why is it a mistake to do this now if it was not a mistake to do it a second ago? I don't know. But definitely, the computer just wants to get rid of this pawn and have a rook on an open file right here. So that's why it was suggesting the bishop first, and then it's saying black would be smart enough not to take the pawn at that point, and we would move on. But as I said, I decided to guard the pawn and then move the bishop. Not a good idea. My opponent directly challenged my knight, It is my best move to take it, so I did, and they took back. But as you can see now, I'm down 2. I decided to kick the bishop out a different way. That turned out to not be a good idea. And each one of these next few moves, I'm not making a mistake or a blunder. I'm just making a less than optimal move, and my opponent's advantage slowly gets bigger. Here I thought, I don't have the knight to block off this check anymore, so I can just block off that whole path by moving this pawn forward. It seemed like a reasonable idea at the time, but now my disadvantage is 3 points, and my opponent has a way to immediately go after that pawn. I did play the best move here, gaining a bunch of space. And my opponent did not play one of their best moves here. The advantage comes down a little bit. I did play one of the best moves, but they're going to chop through that. And what happened was, after this, I have a really easy solution of just getting this bishop out of the way. I can also put my queen up 1 to guard the bishop, or here it says, it's not even shown right now, but when I ran the analysis earlier, it said, you know what, you can even move the rook up to guard the bishop from the side and still protect this pawn as it advances. Well, in a moment of complete non-reasonableness, I moved the rook over this way, which, yeah, as you can see, that's a mistake. Pretty bad. I went down that exchange. We played a few more moves. I had to protect the bishop from the side, and then my opponent played e5. And here, with I still had 6 minutes left in a 10-minute game, but I see that if I let them take and then I take back, they can just take back, because I'm not going to move this bishop, right? And they've got all these pieces pointed at my bishop. They've got that pointed at the bishop. They're going to end up just wiping that out down there. And yeah, I saw that, and I thought, you know what, it's not even worth it to play on, so I resigned. But it all comes back. It really started to fall apart on move 8 or so after this, when I didn't move my bishop up. That's where it really started to go wrong, because I was afraid of this pawn. But now, I think in future scenarios, I will understand that will be fine. If I move my bishop up, if they take this pawn, I just put a rook on this open file. So where I moved the rook over here later and lost it to that exchange, that's something I already knew was bad. I just wasn't looking far enough to see the bishop down there. But this move over here, now I know to do this and not worry about either the exchange or losing that pawn. Now, this is a position reached in the second game by about move 11, where I'm playing with the black pieces, and because I've already lost that other one, I know that this one's not going to put me over 1200. But still, I thought, hey, I can get back into the 1190s and at least have a shot. Okay, but right here at this position, you can see from the engine suggestion that by far, not by far, but pretty noticeable, that it says my best move is bishop to a3. I'll be honest, I probably wouldn't have considered that. I don't know. What does it intend to do? Try to sneak in here? Because that seems like a pretty obvious threat. But it's not just the threat, I think. It's that plus also preparing to castle. Now it's not saying that's my best move. My best move now is queen to c7. It's still thinking. Okay. Or even queen to b7 is fine. But what I saw was this free pawn in the middle. I've had to get my knight out kind of an unorthodox way, and guess what? There's a free pawn right there where that knight can hit it. That was too tempting for me. I didn't see the approaching danger, so I took that pawn. You see the advantage jumps. It's huge. But it's only an advantage if my opponent takes this bishop right now. And they didn't. Not sure exactly why. Not sure what they were afraid of. But before I took that pawn, I couldn't kick this bishop out here with f6. At least I thought I couldn't, because that pawn was guarding that spot. But now that pawn is not guarding f6, I can move my pawn forward. So maybe that's what inspired their next move instead of their best one, is they moved their bishop out of the way. Perhaps they saw that I was about to move this pawn forward. I don't know. But now I have the advantage. I need to go here, according to the engine. And I don't think I would consider that, just because I'm not in the habit of putting my bishop someplace that can just be easily not only blocked by a pawn, but also threatened by a pawn, because that would force another move with the bishop. But the computer says, oh, that's actually fine. You actually want your bishop to be there. And but of course I didn't see that. It says you could also move your queen down here. But what I saw was where their bishop is pointed. And yes, it would have definitely been smarter to move my queen out of that. But what I decided to do instead was reinforce the position and preparing to castle. So that's what I did. Big blunder. Big blunder. And if my opponent does one of those two moves, this or threatens my queen over here. If they threaten my queen over here, they're also threatening the bishop. And so when my queen moves, they'll get the bishop. Not sure what's so big about that exactly. At least here, I don't know why that's listed as their best move. I do understand on this. And that's what they did, was put that there. Well, my thinking was, if I go to any place that doesn't guard the bishop, they're just going to take it for free. So I decided to go to a place that guards the bishop. Do you see what the engine is suggesting? It's saying just take this knight. To take the knight on d4 and let them have my queen, and then come back and get that knight too. It's saying that's how bad my position is right now. Is that my absolute best move is just to take this knight, give up my queen, take the other knight, and just not have a queen. That's how bad it thinks my position is. I didn't think it was that bad. I thought, hey, what if I went here? I can protect the bishop from the side. That turns out to be much worse. Because they can just take the bishop and watch what happens. They take the bishop. I can't take back. And the reason I can't take back is because when I do, they take here, and they're pointing at my queen with a protected bishop. So I can't retake the knight, and I'm down another piece over there. But I didn't know that, so I took it. And they did that. So yeah. So I have to move my queen off this diagonal to a place that doesn't damage my queen even further while this knight gets away. If I move forward, this pawn's after it. If I move forward again, the bishop can keep pressuring me. Same thing with going to here or here. If I move over one, the knight comes here and forks my queen and king. If I go here or here, the knight just gets it straight away. So where can I go? And either way, the knight gets away. If I go to a place that's safe, like, let's just say I went all the way over here, right? Queen to a5. They can't, I mean, they could keep chasing me, but they don't have to. So if I moved over there, watch, this is what I was seeing. Knight clears out a pawn with check, forcing me to move my king, lose my castling rights, and then just gets out of the way. Easy peasy. And yeah, so I realized I just lost a piece for free. And it's only move 15, but I just resigned. But it goes back to the mistake back here. Yeah. Right here. We're very near even. But I need to not take that pawn. I need to get my queen out of danger of this knight to a4 move by either coming back one or two or putting the bishop here. And it says if I put the bishop there, they wouldn't try the knight to a4. I'm not sure why. In fact, if I did that, it says they would bring this bishop all the way back here. But it comes down to the fact of what they can do when I do that. Again, their next move wasn't great. They lost a bunch of their advantage. And then that was much worse. It came down to that too. That's just not good. Here I have to go here, even though it means they're going to move their pawn. Because later on, when I had my bishop lined up on this diagonal, the back bishop was guarded by this pawn. But if I do this now, draw this pawn forward, and then come back, then over here, that bishop's not guarded from behind like it was. And that changes the whole situation, apparently. But anyway, hopefully that was instructive. I don't feel like I fully understand these positions, but I am becoming more aware of how things happen and how things change on the board. That this little simple bishop maneuver, drawing this pawn forward, changes the fact that this pawn is guarding this bishop right now to nothing guarding that bishop. So if we end up in a similar situation later with my bishop over here, the thing in the back isn't protected. And then let's just say I did that, and then they tried this maneuver here. I would take the bishop with check, and they have to move the king. Then I can take back their knight, and it's a completely different situation than what we ended up with by me not drawing that pawn forward. So anyway, that's I'm not hanging pieces in one move anymore. Most of the time, I'm not just putting queens where a knight can get them or fork me, but I am losing these huge tactical blunders by not seeing a couple of moves in advance, not seeing that eventually my bishop's going to probably be right here. Because right here, this is the move where I moved that bishop. I could have taken a couple of seconds to see that their bishop is protected. I can move that pawn just by putting my bishop here and getting out of the way. And then, anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you also learned something. And keep your fingers crossed for me that I will eventually crack that 1200 barrier.